is Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Donald Trump is getting ready to sign an executive order to crack down on H-1B visas, say multiple reports in the US, a move that will badly hurt Indian IT companies. A new bill has also been introduced in the US House of Representatives, sending Indian IT stocks crashing today. Should the Indian government lodge a strong protest? What is it that India can do? And just how has the note ban affected India's growth? What exactly was the goal of demonetization anyway? The Niti Aayog's Vivek Debroy joins us on why there is no magic wand for the economy on the day the economic survey has admitted that growth has indeed slowed down. But first, India says it has already conveyed its concerns to the US administration and to the US Congress at senior levels on moves to crack down on H-1B visas. The visas are used extensively by Indian IT companies, and there are reports that President Trump is all set to cut this down as part of his wider immigration reform. Indian IT stocks were badly hit today.
The Infosys campus in Bangalore, one of those worst hit by the new proposed visa guidelines. The IT biggie was among the tech companies which saw stocks fall by up to 9%, as India's top 5 IT firms lost 50,000 crore in market value in one brutal hour. Markets fearing the worst as American lawmakers began considering revised guidelines for H-1B visas, the non-immigrant visas that take foreign workers, many of them Indians, to American shows every year. These people are the backbone of India's top IT companies and are responsible for India's 70% share of the world's outsourcing market.
There are many uncertainties along the way, and I think it would be premature to really read too much of significance into the draft which has been tabled at this stage.
The legislation aimed at discouraging foreign workers replacing American employees calls for more than doubling the minimum salary of H-1B visa holders. They will now get $130,000, up from $60,000. This rise makes it difficult for Indian companies to hire employees on H-1B visas to work on projects in America, and is designed to hit where it hurts, profitability of these companies.
As an IT profession and veteran in this IT industry, I would say that this is going to affect a lot.
The major, business comes from US. So this can have a great impact on the IT industry as such, not even only in IT, but the remaining industries also.
India's interests and concerns have been conveyed both to the US administration and the US Congress at senior levels.
But it's of little solace to engineering students like these, who say they've never feared more for their future.
I know many of my friends who are in computer science and all, so IT firms used to hire them. And the effect of this decision, even the speculation of this, was seen in our placement session. And the placement of this IIT Delhi, this session was not very good.
It's not just the IT companies and techies who are worried. There is a fear that this could have a cascading effect on several other industries which are directly dependent on the earnings of these IT companies and their employees. With Natasha, Reha and Divya, Harish Upadhyaya, NDTV, Bengaluru.
Well, Mr. R. Chandrasekhar, the president of NASSCOM, joins us on NDTV today. Mr. Chandrasekhar, how concerned are you by these developments? In a sense, you knew that this was coming, given that President Trump has been talking about this for a while, but with reports that this executive order could come this week and this legislation coming into the House of Representatives, how worried are you?
Well, obviously there are serious concerns here, but I think let us also have a sense of proportion. There are two separate things that we are looking at right now. One is the executive order, a draft of which was leaked. It's not yet an order, it's a draft. But that is something which could happen fairly quickly, maybe in days. Whereas the legislation is something which has just been tabled. It's not the first, there have been others, and there will probably be many more thereafter as well. That is a much more, that's a much longer term for it to really wend its way through the legislative process. There are many uncertainties along the way, and I think it would be premature to really read too much of significance into the draft which has been tabled at this stage.
But like you said,
as far as the draft executive order...
Yeah, I just said the executive order is actually the one to watch out for. Can you give us a sense of what the impact actually could be? We saw IT stocks today reacting very badly to this news. What exactly is the impact going to be in real terms for Indian companies?
Yeah, I'm really not sure what the stock markets are reacting to, because the draft of the executive order has been around for several days now in the public domain, whereas it's the bill which was recently introduced. The impact in terms of on the stock market has been more related to the latter in terms of timing. However, but coming back to the question of the executive order, in the US system, the substantive issues relating to immigration, the type of visas, the various categories, the number of visas that can be issued, the kind of major attendant conditions, all of these are part of the law, and therefore changes will require legislation and cannot be done through an executive order. At the same time, the draft of the executive order aims at tightening a lot of the processes with regard to the vetting of applications, with regard to how they are processed, also with regard to monitoring and scrutiny of companies which are operating in the US for compliance with the law. So in short, it promises to herald an era of far more intrusive and far more frequent investigation and scrutiny. The fact is that all the previous investigations, and there have been many of them, have not revealed any indication of wrongdoing. But at the same time, these intrusive and frequent investigations do also create a certain pressure of their own kind. So that is one aspect of it which will certainly have some impact on the companies. The second is in terms of...
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask what you could do about it, because the government of India has said it has already, and we know that in the past the government has taken up this issue. Like you said, in the past also legislation has been introduced and it's there. They've taken up this issue with the US Congress, with members of the US Congress, with members of the US administration. NASSCOM itself is trying to reach out to its counterparts in America. What more can the government do at this point? Do you think a stronger protest needs to be lodged over this, or can India do any more than it's already doing?
Well, I think to be really practical, I think the issue has to be taken up with the US authorities at every opportunity, both on the administrative side as well as on the legislative side. Because it's a new administration, we need to once again convey the core messages that we have, which is that this industry actually helps to create jobs in America, not take them away. It creates jobs directly, it creates jobs indirectly, it helps corporate America to create jobs. The second dimension is that this industry actually fills a major gap in the US in terms of skills. All the US statistics, all the US government studies indicate that there is a big shortage of workers in the area of STEM skills. There are more than 2 million jobs which are unfilled, and which will grow to 2.4 million by 2018, and more than half of them are in IT related areas within STEM. So these such workers are simply not available in the US. And unemployment rate in the US in this segment is below 2%.
But is there a worry that you also have...
And more than 50%...
Sorry, go ahead.
...of people who are enrolling in colleges in these areas are foreigners. And if you want to hire even those people, you need visas. So these are some of the ground realities, none of it changes because of either the legislation or the executive order. So I think those are the realities they have to grapple with.
They have to grapple with, and you're hoping that they grapple with those realities, but we've seen, that when President Trump, sets his mind to something, clearly the last week has demonstrated that he'll go ahead irrespective of what he may or may not be advised. Having said that, are you also a little concerned that there could be bipartisan support for something like this, because this legislation that's been introduced last night actually comes from a Democrat senator from California. So, this is something that is bipartisan,
No, I completely agree with you. The fact that there are rational and fact-based arguments warranting something different are no guarantee that these kind of steps will not be taken. There are after all political dimensions to such decisions. There are emotive and perceptual dimensions to these decisions, and therefore we have to keep that into account, take that into account. But if you take that the objective of this legislation is to protect job opportunities for American workers, then it's not doing that either, because that is what we really need to communicate, that if you feel that workers coming in below a certain wage level is going to hurt American workers, then by all means please implement that, but implement it thoroughly, don't leave any loopholes, and don't allow people to bring in workers under some other window even while you are shutting it for some of the companies out of India. So I think the point is, if you want to protect, please protect them fully, and that will automatically bring out the position very clearly.
What are you going to do though, Mr. Chandrasekhar? What can NASSCOM do? Are you going to urge the government to take this up in a stronger way? What are you going to do right now? Because this executive order could happen any time.
Well, there are 2 or 3 different things. One is, of course, we do plan to go to the US and reach out to lawmakers and people in the administration, but that is later in February. The second thing is, we are in contact with the government here in India, and we have sought their help in helping to put across all these aspects to the US excuse me, particularly in the light of President Trump's positive statements about India and the relationship with India.
All right. Well, here's hoping to succeed.
We will continue to share the various perceptions that we have with the US authorities.
All right, Mr. Chandrasekhar, thank you for joining us today on that big story about the H-1B visas, which could be the next target of President Trump's wider immigration reform and could see a drastic change. Thank you. Well, joining us on the program now is Ambassador K.C. Singh, PN Vijay spokesperson for the BJP, Manish Tiwari, senior fellow with the Atlantic Council, and of course he is a spokesperson of the Congress party as well. Ajay Kolla, the founder and CEO of wisdomjobs.com, also joining us tonight. Ambassador Singh, to you first. We were actually talking about this yesterday on the program, the potential action that could be taken by President Trump, and more and more reports are coming out of this leaked memo from the White House. How do you think the Indian government should handle it? Because today the MEA said we've raised this, we've taken it up at very senior levels. Is there anything more that India can do? Ambassador K.C. Singh, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, you asked me.
Yeah, that question was for you.
Sorry, Nidhi.
Yeah.
Look, we discussed it yesterday also. This is like an express engine which was headed to you. Now, the fact that the market goes into a big tumble today is very surprising, because this is something which was expected, which should have been anticipated. It should have been built into the market behavior. There's very little that we can really do, because this is part of President's domestic agenda. He said it in his inauguration speech, buy American, hire American. So what you have to do is you have to adapt. And some of the companies are already adapting. They're recruiting locally, their costs will go up. Other things which are anyway happening is that probably the world is moving towards more automation, even where software is concerned. Now these are the parallels of an industry which is supporting the software development in other places. They are not really products being produced by us. We haven't produced a Google or a Yahoo. The Chinese have done it, Alibaba is there and so on and so forth. We haven't done that. So as a result, you have now to scamper and cover your bases. There's very little that you can do by bilateral demarches, because for Trump, it is not India specific. It's part of what he has promised the people of America. It is what he calls reshoring of jobs. Those jobs may or may not go. Another argument we can take up with them is what the Japanese have taken up, which is go and tell them and explain to them, and this should have been done by now, how all this is not taking jobs away. The software work that the Indian companies are doing are actually generating more employment. Now those are the kinds of arguments which will work. But simply, at the moment throwing a fit, that's not going to help.
Well, I think that's what the NASSCOM chief was trying to say as well, that, if one listens to logic and reason, PN Vijay, then the administration would realize that far removed from the rhetoric, this is something that also creates jobs for Americans. Having said that, do you also believe that, the government's hands are tied on this? What does it say, about the kind of bonhomie that everybody is talking about between the Prime Minister and President Trump? I think the only person who can explain this to him is Prime Minister Modi, otherwise it's not going to work.
As the ambassador was saying, Trump is on his own trip. During the campaign, he said that first 100 days, I'm going to do whatever it takes to give jobs to Americans. He's building the wall, and I mean, apart from the rhetoric, he's putting his, putting all this into action. I think the government of India, of course, will do all that it can, because the IT industry is in India is one of its most success stories. We got a global competitiveness, and we'll take it up at every possible level, I'm sure. Also, I guess the multinational companies who operate in a global environment see great advantage in hiring Indian talent. So I'm sure they have a very strong lobbying power, and probably we'll use them also to try and convince Trump that he should not do such blanket things. So it's not going to be easy, Nidhi, frankly, because he's after merchandise imports, he's after human capital imports. He's really going after everything. We don't know how successful he will be. On the other hand, it's also an opportunity for our IT sector, which has got huge amounts of cash in its books, to rejig itself in two ways: to create capacity here in India so that most of the H1 jobs which are done there could be brought back to India, to our technology parks. It's not impossible. Some of it is happening. IBM is doing it, Accenture is doing it. Indian companies should also do it in very great measure. And of course, the second thing is the IT companies, for reasons of profitability, have totally ignored the Indian market. They should take this as a challenge. After all, every industry is being disrupted by something or the other. They should take it as a challenge and put more money and people into bringing in more automation, more technology into the Indian environment, where we are really crying for more.
That is an important point.
They should also look inward and try to do that.
And one of the other things you said, which I'll take to Manish Tiwari, is when you said that Trump is on his own trip, and therefore, Manish Tiwari, this is an unknown entity we're dealing with. And as I was saying to the NASSCOM chief as well, you're dealing with someone who's not listening to advice, he's not listening to logic or reason, and that's reflected already in many of the decisions he's taken. And the fact that he's on his own trip, means, we're hurtling into this with, big consequences.
Well, Nidhi, I think you need to really see this development in a broader context. The fact is that President Trump is challenging the status quo as it exists on almost every possible frontier. He is not only recalibrating domestic policy, but he is also recalibrating as to how he would like to define America's national interests. He's challenged the existence of NATO. He wants to draw down from Asia. He's already opted out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He wants to talk to DPR Korea. He's extended a hand of friendship to President Putin. There are going to be implications in the Indo-Pacific region if reshoring of American jobs takes place, more in the context of the Chinese economy than only in the context of the Indian economy. So therefore, you are dealing with a fundamental recalibration of what America's national interest, as Donald Trump understands it, is playing itself out. So therefore, I would agree with what PN Vijay said, or Ambassador K.C. Singh said, that rather than look at it only in terms of being hit by something which frankly was expected, it should be seen as an opportunity to try and rejig the business model, see as to how we can reshore those jobs, because as the walls will go up of protectionism, a large number of American companies would also start looking beyond the shores of the US to take a lot of the IT related work, which in any case, can be done
given that all of it exists really in the virtual world. So therefore, I guess this is an opportunity for the Indian information technology sector and some of the other sectors to really redefine itself.
Okay, I'm also going to read out, we just seen the Congress's Anand Sharma, former Minister of State for External Affairs, also reacting, saying that that what the MEA has said today is not enough. You have to lodge a protest in very clear terms. It's not enough to convey sentiment. I'm going to come to that in just a moment. But Ajay, Kolla, just to get a sense from you on what the IT industry is feeling right now. I mean, why is there a sense of panic? As KC Singh says, and as everyone actually has been saying, we should have expected this at some point. And, is it really a surprise that any of this is happening now?
Hi Nidhi, thanks. Actually, we need to look this one into then two different ways. One is about the financial way for the IT companies, and then employment within India and then within US. So when we are coming to the financial way in the IT companies, yes, it's going to be impact some part, because there are huge margins which the companies are playing for to get the more revenues and more profits over there, for even the with the huge volume of people are going from here to there, and for the employability. So normally for every company they are going to be operating at two different ways. One is an offshore level and the on-site level. In the on-site level, they are going to be like in the payroll that the entire the rate per hour or per day is going to be a huge one in the US. But in offshore the cost is very low. There isn't like a lot of people is working from here. Almost on 60-40 ratio is what they are going to operate normally. When coming to the employment wise, yes, it's going to be the time being it's going to impact, but in the long run it's going to get the benefit for India, because of the most of whatever the mid-level positions. For example, now they are moving from 65K to 130K. Almost they are doubling the entire band. So almost whoever is going on between the 65 to 130K of bandwidth, who is going to the on-site, instead of going to the on-site, the people will get an opportunity within India.
So you're saying it actually retain talent in India. You're saying that in the long run, it will actually retain talent and skill in India rather than have it sent abroad.
Yes. So normally the companies are going to, they need the manpower. Finally, they need to complete the entire task. So they need to complete the entire deliverability what they're expecting of an IT. So instead of they're going to get the people from the offsite to the on-site to the US, instead of working over there, and they can be outsourced their entire project to here, and the people is going to work here. So as of everybody is mentioning about the talent pool within the US. So they are having some kind of talent crunch is being there.
Because this is a different point of view, KC Singh, on looking at this, because otherwise IT companies are very concerned. NASSCOM, otherwise is quite concerned about how this will play out. But do you agree with Anand Sharma, KC Singh, that the government should have been able to get more credible assurances, as he puts it, from the Trump administration, although it's, frankly, just a few days old, that it's not enough to say you've conveyed your sentiments in the past, that it's time to lodge a stronger protest?
That's a political argument which I would imagine the opposition party is entitled to make. But really there is not all that much you can do. Trump is on a rampage. He's firing people who get in his way. He's issuing an executive order or two a day. He is just literally ticking off things to do task in the first 15 days. So let him go through this initial thing, as Manish said, and then let's pick up the bits, because new markets will open up. There'll be some market he'll vacate in China. Let's see what we can do with China. Our companies have gone to China. So we'll have to 25% of our IT exports go to UK. Now UK is also detaching from Europe. Maybe you have to start looking at European market more seriously. 60% of our exports are going to Canada and US. Maybe we need a bigger footprint in Canada. Let's see how NAFTA is renegotiated. So I don't think this is a time to sort of cry over spilt milk. But we will take a hit initially. By all means, take it up strongly with the US government. But this is not something over which you strain your relationship or anything. But convey it to them that they also need the Indian market. We have e-commerce coming up. There are other kinds of platforms in India. Now, if they want access to our market, Apple wants to manufacture here, etc. Now, that may be of no interest to Trump at the moment, because he's saying everything should be manufactured in America. But at some stage, you realize that America can't be a fortress. He needs the world. Probably that time is not now.
But you know, it's interesting when you say that this shouldn't be something that will strain relations. But Manish, I'll come back to you on that. Does it have the potential though to strain relations? I mean, you have two leaders who clearly, have. It appears to have, hit it off at some level. Mr. Modi being the fifth world leader who was called up by Donald Trump even before, he spoke to Vladimir Putin and some other key leaders. But is that going to be enough? Do you see this, as a potential thorn in the relationship in the coming year or so?
Well, the fact is, Nidhi, that people will or countries will have to readjust and recalibrate themselves to the world as Mr. Donald Trump views it. So therefore, there are two ways of then approaching it. One is, of course, confrontationist, and at some point in time, India will have to stand firm and should stand firm in order to convey as to what its national interest is all about. And then also tell them that, well, if this is the manner in which the US is going to indulge in a certain amount of exceptionalism, which is engage with the world on its own terms, then other countries can also indulge in that exceptionalism and engage with the US, especially the manner in which we've opened up our entire defense market to them, through the foreign military sales route, and I can give various other examples. But as Ambassador K.C. Singh was rightly pointing out, that you have somebody who is trying to fulfill campaign promises that he's made. Now, ultimately, how much of it goes through Congress, how much momentum it loses as he goes along, as the realities of governance sink in, this is really work in progress. This is an evolution in the making, and therefore I think it will not be in our interest to really be the bull in the china shop, because there's already one bull on the rampage. So it's better to wait and see as to how this pans out, and then calibrate India's national interest and see as to where we can find points of convergence.
B.N. Vijay, is there anything though, when Manish Tiwari was talking about, then India perhaps standing up and saying that, there are things that we can do if you're going to do this, will a point have to come where India will have to just say that this is not acceptable, and we can take reciprocal measures?
Surely not in the immediate future. Nidhi, we should understand that Trump is not singling out India. His is a geopolitics that he's playing out, and we are one of the players, not even the biggest player. And let's not forget, in this H1B visa, he has removed the country-wise cap, which is a huge positive for India, because you would remember India's cap would get filled up within a week, whereas others used to have much better advantage on caps. That's been removed. So it's surely not directed at India, and I think it will be better tactics for the Modi administration to engage with Trump. Let's not forget some of the positives that are going for us. Manish mentioned a couple of them. One is in Trump's overall world view, containing Islamic terrorism and containing China's strength over the global economy are more or less in line with India's interests. So if there is one global friend for America right now, it could be India. And secondly, America's interests in India have become huge in the last 15 years, whether it's defense or e-commerce or banking or financial services or whatever it is. America has a huge involvement in India. So we have to learn to live with each other. And I think we should not be confrontational with Trump at this point in time. We should engage them at the Trump administration at various levels and make the best of the situation.
All right. Well, last question to Ambassador K.C. Singh is that, do you see as a result of this other countries perhaps benefiting? Student visas could be hit as well. It's not just the H1B visa. Do you see Canada, Australia, now doors opening for students to go elsewhere? Is America going to lose out there, possibly?
Well, there'll be one of the things to point out to them. It happened in the past also, when partly because U.S. education is more expensive. So U.S. will be the loser. And you already see now President Trudeau is reacting to Islamic or Syrian refugees. He said, whoever is turned away, I will take them. And despite the attack in the, in the mosque, I don't think Trudeau is going to change. But let's see also how Trump renegotiates North American free trade area. We don't know. whether it will be useful for us, even for IT and other industries, to reposition in Canada or Mexico. Let him finish smashing all the eggs first and then cook an omelette. I think he's the kind of guy you don't be the first one to take on. This is not Jakatu. This is a wild bull.
All right, well, all those references to food, Jallikat, it's all coming to the course of this discussion. Thank you to you all for joining us on the program today. It continues to be a story that we'll be tracking very closely over the next couple of days. Thanks very much.